going on, guys? I am working on my 1G today. Actually, I got an exciting piece in the mail from Antilag Racing. Warren makes these awesome coil on plug conversion kits for first and second generation DSMs, and today we're gonna just go through and get this thing installed on mine. I'm very excited. I having some blowout issues, around 36 pounds of boost. I do have good spark plug wires, and it's a fairly new ignition system, new coil pack and power transistor unit, and we're around I think we're around 14 thousandths gap. It's pretty tight, and I'd like to be able to normalize that, bring that back up to a slightly higher number, and just have better spark energy. So what we're gonna do is, it's really straightforward. We're just gonna go through and take the original system out, pretty much whatever attaching hardware you have on your spark plug cover, if you have one. If you don't, essentially you'll remove the hardware. So these are really awesome wires too. They're like the thickest ones you can get, Thunderbolts. Essentially, we're just going to remove the stock wires. So we got our power transistor unit plug. This is a 90. Okay, so if you guys are installing this on a 90, there's a couple of nuances that you'll want to pay attention to, just because it's not as plug and play as the 91 and up vehicles. So in this case, I have, this is just a parts harness, but this is the original power transistor unit. On the 90s, it's different than the 91 and ups. We are missing two wires from here, which is the switch to power for the ignition and the tacho signal. So that's not an issue because 90s have them. It is just on the coil plug. So if you look, the physical coil plug will have the black with white and the white. So on a 91 and up vehicle, the white wire is at the power transistor unit. The power transistor unit spits out tack signal, as opposed to the coil with a tack filter. So essentially what we need to do is bring this wire over here or wherever. On my harness, this coil plug is in a different location because I have my original coil pack tucked underneath the intake manifold. So your mileage may vary on where your power transistor plug and your coil plug are, but on a stock harness, it's just right under the side of the intake manifold. I'll get a picture of that for you. But essentially, we're gonna take the white wire, hook it up to the white on the Antilag Racing kit. We're going to hook up the black and white to red. So that's power, feeding power to the coils. And then on the power transistor unit side, you have a ground, which you're going to hook up black to black. And then your triggers, coils 1 and 4, and 2 and 3, yellow to yellow, and green to the yellow with red stripe. And so with that, you have the triggers both triggering in waste spark, 1, 4, 2, 3. These are your trigger wires, your yellow and your yellow with red, and then your tack and switch to power are on the coil plug. Now, one other thing to note on a 90 is when you do all this and you go coil and plug, your tachometer will not work. Now, if you're on a standalone, digital dash, whatever, this is no problem. Another solution is to use a 91 and up tachometer and, you know, do it that way. But for me, I'm on a digital dash, so this, you know, lack of tachometer working on the factory dash isn't a concern to me. So that's that. So on a 91 and up vehicle, you don't have to worry about any of these issues on the tack. It's just going to be hook up the correct wire to the correct wire, and you're plug and play, happy days. So I just wanted to mention that. So yours might look different, but your power transistor plug, and generally your coil pack plug will be in this area if you haven't dicked around with your engine harness. But my coil pack harness plug is just right here, so runs under the intake manifold. But essentially you're going to be connecting the coil pack wires to the coil pack plug and power wires to power the coils. So I'll show you the exact wires and routing, but essentially that's all you're going to need to do for installing this. So let me go ahead and get the plug wiring stripped back a little bit and go from there. Okay, so now with the old plug wires removed, you can go ahead and install the plate. The bolts come loose so that when you're pushing everything down, it's easy to center everything. Another thing you want to make sure of is that the wires underneath the plate still have movement. They can still move around under there, you can see. So that being said, the plate and the coils can be tightened up once they're fully seated and tight. Now, the only thing else you have to do is install the plugs to the harness. So like I mentioned, on a 90, there's some slight nuances, but I went over that in a prior clip. Essentially, you're gonna follow the instructions to the T. Make sure that all your connections are terminated, unused connections are terminated and shrink wrapped, and that you use solid connections for your coil wiring. You don't want crappy connections ruining your day, torching ahead, whatever the situation might be, because if you have a spark issue, it's going to be your wiring most likely. So just make sure everything's done correctly. Then once you do all that, you can actually, if your coil pack and per transistor unit are under, like for instance, I have an old JM, I believe it's a JMF coil pack bracket. But now with this new system, we can go ahead and remove all that once, the alternator comes out or whatnot. So it can hang out for now, but essentially that's the install. So just to preface, this is an install on a 90, and there's going to be some nuances compared to 91 and up vehicles. So the main difference being the 4-pin plug for the coil. Essentially your tack wire, your white wire. If you don't see it on your power transistor unit wiring, it's because you have a 90 and it's going here instead. So what I did on my vehicle was that my coil pack plug was underneath the intake. I extended the wires that I needed to, which is the black with white, that's switched power, and the tack, so that it can nicely meet up in this area here in the main harness. So that's pretty much it. So we have the coil on plug kit installed. This is the instruction sheet right here, so just make sure to follow this to a T. They're great instructions. As you can see, that's the 91 style power transistor unit, and you can see the black and white and white wire are present on just the singular plug. So with that, on a 90, you just have to bring those wires up to the area and you'll be all good to go. So essentially now we're just going to start this thing up and see how it sounds. Oh wow, it runs so good, holy cow. Sweet. So that's that. Pretty much we're gonna go ahead and put a fresh set of plugs in there just for my own sake. I'm gonna gap them down to 20, see where that brings us. So with this, we should have a lot more spark energy. I highly recommend it to anyone who's trying to push any sort of power at this point now. The ignition system on these cars are 30 years old, and unless you're buying new stuff, it's questionable. So that's just my take on it now, and I'll let you know how it performs. Catch you in the next one, guys.